Bobby, listen, thanks for stepping on the podcast. We talk to each other on Instagram all the time. You've got your Instagram handle is matched perfectly. But for the sake of our listeners, if you could just introduce yourself and give it some context, please.
Absolutely. No, thank you guys for having me. Um, yeah, we've connected on Instagram a bunch. I enjoy the podcast very much. Matt, your blog's been a huge resource. So thank you for all the work you do.
Thanks.
Yeah, the Match Perfectly site is something my wife and I do just kind of for fun, and some of the brands that we like and like to showcase, and sort of more of a couples oriented focus. And I've been a huge Bond fan for as long as I can remember. And so, incorporating some of those style elements, either from Sean or Roger or Daniel, and some of those lifestyle elements is something we try and focus on. So it's not a purely Bond focused blog, but definitely a lot of Bond brands and Bond influence, which is cool. And I think that's something that a lot of people in this community can probably relate to, whether it's travel or fragrance or clothes or whatever.
Yeah. Bobby, I know Matt wanted to ask you about your wardrobe, but before we get into that,
Sure.
I saw on one of your Instagram captions recently the story of how you and your wife met. I thought it was
Yes.
a really sweet story, and
Yes.
maybe if you could just regale that for us.
Sure, absolutely true story. So for our American listeners, it's you never know who you're going to meet when you go to Target. I was there one rainy Florida summer day and had my umbrella with me and saw just this absolutely beautiful girl in line ahead of me, and I was like, you know what? If I don't talk to her, I'm going to regret that probably for the rest of my life. So I went up. It was raining. She had her hand full of groceries and kind of stuff, with bags and things in her hand. It was like, do you use a help with that? Use a hand with that. And it's like, yeah, I think she maybe was kind of like, wow, this guy's kind of forward. And I had my umbrella, and it was, so looking back, it's kind of a very romantic sort of thing. But if we were talking to my dad, he'd look and say, what? He could have been some sort of psycho. Why did you let him walk you to your car and things like that? So,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where you're the right place at the right time. And, I think I said in that post, I mean, it's like, try and be a gentleman, try and be, all those things that Bond would embody, and carry a trusty umbrella because you never know who you're going to meet.
Well,
Carrying
exactly.
on. Yeah,
And,
yeah.
I mean,
It was a very cool way to meet. Avoid the bars, avoid the clubs, avoid that scene. Carry an umbrella
yeah.
and go to Target.
It's a great story to tell the kids, right? And
Absolutely.
it has a little bit of Bondian chivalry to it, doesn't it, Matt? As well, I think having the serendipity, being there at the right time, having the umbrella. It's almost like that's what Bond is always about: just right place, right time.
I have to say that's even better than Bond. Bond never has an umbrella.
He should, though, right?
He should.
It's like much more effective than the PPK sometimes.
Yeah, good shout. I love that story.
Thank you.
So, Matt, did you want to crack on and
Yes.
ask
Yes,
about the
Bobby.
wardrobe?
Yeah, Bobby. So has Bond inspired your wardrobe? And I mean, how has Bond inspired your wardrobe?
Absolutely, without a doubt. And I think it's one of those things that, growing up, that's sort of an aspirational type way to dress, whether you're looking at, the Sean suits, or you're looking at the more modern Daniel, Tom Ford stuff. Being in Florida, I gravitate to a lot of the warm weather stuff, and Thunderball has always been my top Bond. I think Sean looks so good in that, whether it's the suits. At the beginning, he's got that. You guys have talked about that gray flannel suit he's wearing at the beginning. That's outstanding. His looks in the Bahamas are just so well put together. The camp shirts he's wearing, or the white swim shorts he's wearing, and the navy Fred Perry polo. All of those have been really influential on me. And you start getting into this, and you start digging a little bit, and you figure out, that's where your blog comes in so nicely, Matt. It's like you start thinking, boy, I wonder what were those shorts he was wearing, or what was that shirt or that tie? You start piecing these things together. And I know you had Dave Zaritsky from the Bond Experience on recently. And what's so interesting and so fun about this hobby is you can wear those pieces. I can wear an Orla Bar Brown pair of swim shorts to the beach, and I know that's a Bond connection, but it's not so overt.
Yeah.
And I think to me, that's really interesting. And I think, as far as a Bond style influence, for me, it's those classic elements. I go back to Sean a lot because I think a lot of the choices he makes in his style and the way he carries himself is a very timeless way to dress and a very timeless way to carry yourself. And that's what's so appealing to me. I can watch those old Seans over and over and over again. It's like that sort of old Hollywood glamour that's maybe a little bit lost today.
Yeah, and are there other Bond brands in your wardrobe other than Orla Bar Brown?
Yeah,
as far
absolutely.
As clothes go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's with Daniel, that's sort of reignited my passion. I know Daniel, maybe not everyone's cup of tea, but a lot of the brands became, I think, a little bit more accessible because it wasn't always it's not such tailored clothing now with Daniel. There's a lot more casual attire. So if it's a Sunspell polo that's in my wardrobe, or if it's, the cardigans he's wearing, or the Sunspell t-shirts, or some of the Crockett and Jones type shoes that are a little bit more accessible rather than a Brioni tuxedo, or some of the higher end Tom Ford suits and things like that. And I think, to me, that's really cool to be able to put a Skyfall outfit together with the Scotch and Soda jeans and the N-Peel sweater and the Barber jacket. To me, those are accessible pieces that are casual enough to wear almost every day when you're not suited and booted and you're wearing your ties and your suits and things like that. So sure, there are a bunch of Bond brands I enjoy wearing, and I think Daniel has kind of opened that up on the more casual side.
Indeed.
Sure. Bobby, would you be as fascinated with Tom Ford clothing had it not been affiliated with the Bond film? I think Matt and I discuss this sometimes about how people have naturally gravitated towards Tom Ford, like Bond fans have, because of the association. But if you divorced that away and it wasn't involved in the franchise at all, do you think people that grew up appreciating the classic style, the Brionis, the Anthony Sinclairs, do you think they would look at Tom Ford and go, now that's a bit of me?
That's an interesting question because I know, Tom Ford is, from what I understand, is really rooted in more that Italian style, really more than anything than the British style somewhat. Isn't he, Matt? It's like...
Well, his suits are very much rooted in the British style. He has some other Italian fashion items, but...
I guess I'm thinking back, he was at Gucci, wasn't he,
He was,
for a while?
He was at Gucci, but he did bring in some British inspiration to those suits. But
I guess
his own suits are definitely more British.
For me, I'm on the suiting side of things. I'm not a fan of the Tom Ford big peak lapels. I'm not. I'm a pretty slim, skinny guy, and to me, that would look out of proportion on me. I think he's an interesting choice for Bond. I think probably that has raised the profile with kind of within the Bond community. If I know you guys had the poll. Who would it go to if it wasn't Tom Ford doing that? And I think that's an interesting conversation. I think for me, I think Tom Ford is certainly one of those, again, aspirational type purchases, and there are plenty of those. Whether that's a Versace, a Dolce & Gabbana, or you can rattle off the high end menswear lines. But I think definitely for the Bond community in particular, I don't think there would clearly be that focus on Tom Ford and the things that people seek out, not only to buy the originals, but you look at someone like a Matt Love at Royale Filmwear that does Bond-inspired pieces based on the Tom Ford stuff by and large, whether that's the Harrington jacket or the shawl neck sweater. I don't think those pieces would be happening if it weren't for Tom Ford's involvement.
Yeah.
Bobby, I want to ask you about the private blends as well. So,
yes,
you've got a couple in your collection, is that right?
We do. My wife and I are both big fans of the Tom Ford scents, and honestly, I think there's probably a Bond influence there. It comes up in the novels often. Ian Fleming was a big fan of the Florist brand, so that comes up, or Eucharist comes up a lot. So I think part of the Bond character as a whole has always been about having a fully sensory experience, and whether that's scents or that's clothing or that's food or that's travel, Bond immerses himself in that lifestyle. And I think Tom Ford being a Bond affiliated brand, and while the private blends aren't cheap, it's not the same as purchasing a Tom Ford suit, right? Yeah. So you can have a little bit of that Tom Ford exclusive experience without having to spend, $6,000, $3,000, or whatever the suits are going for these days. And from what I understand, Daniel Craig is a fan of some of the scents as well. So I think there's a Bond tie-in there. So while maybe the Fleming Bond would have been a fan of Florist number 89, I know that's a Fleming favorite himself, and that's a great scent. So if folks are looking to get a Bond-inspired scent and something that Fleming himself wore, that's a really nice scent. It's kind of, I would describe it like a barbershop type scent, just like an old style British gentleman's fragrance. I think that's a great one. As far as Tom Ford, his newest offering, the Beau de Jour, that I think you guys talked about a couple podcasts ago, that's his brand new release, is very much Florist inspired, very much so, very much in that, very much in that number 89 vein. So I could picture that Tom Ford, that Beau de Jour, being a scent Bond would wear, which is interesting to me. It's like you have those tie-ins. I think Tom Ford is very cognizant of that. I think he really is a fan of all things British. I really think he is an Anglophile in a lot of ways. You read the descriptions of a lot of his scents. Tuscan leather is a favorite of mine, and he talks about describing that as smelling like a high-end British gentleman's club, things like that. And I think he's very cognizant of trying to bring those scents and have that as a really interesting experience. So I think I gravitate towards those because, and I think my wife does too, because it's fun to wear something that isn't going to smell like everybody else. That's not going to smell like everything else at your cosmetic counter, and that's something unique. And it's fun to rotate through those. So we've been lucky enough. We've got a bunch of those in the rotation, and we've got just a wonderful person we work with at our Nordstrom store here. So it's every time we're going to get something, it's like we're stopping by to get the newest samples of whatever else is out. So we're constantly trying that for sure.
Bobby, so you and your wife share the fragrances. Does she wear the same one as you all the time? As in,
yes.
Can you both wear these? So
I highly recommend that. So they are a little bit on the spendy side, but really to a extent they are all unisex. Some wear a little more masculine or a little more feminine. The ones that we gravitate towards that are absolutely unisex, Tuscan leather, I would say, is a great place to start. That's one of my favorites. Tobacco Vanille is evidently one of Daniel Craig's favorites. Also perfectly unisex. That's a good one for both guys and girls to wear. Oud Wood would be another favorite. So, and as you get into this more, you try and figure out kind of what matches the weather a little bit, what matches, if you're going out for the evening, maybe something a little bit heavier, like a Tuscan leather might be appropriate, something like that. If, daytime wear, something a little lighter, Tom Ford Soleil de Positano is a nice light fragrance, very Italian. If you're familiar with Acqua di Parma, it's kind of in that vein again. It's another classic, just another classic scent. And a lot of these classic scents, traditionally were unisex. And I think, Tom Ford is again aware of that, sort of that history. And I think it's kind of fun to be able to share that. And it's really, they smell different. That when I'm wearing that, it smells very different than it is smelling on my wife. So your chemistry does have a bit to do with it as well.
Awesome. Is there like a black tie fragrance, like something where you're going to go out, you're going to put the tux on and go, right, I'm going all out now?
I think so. I think his new newer offering. I think whether you're a fan of the name "Fucking Fabulous" or not, I don't know how that sits with you. I didn't name it. I'm just relaying
he can do
what
what
I
he
know
wants,
it's
right? I
called.
mean,
He does,
even Tom Ford is capitalized, right? I only
Sure.
just realized that today when I'm looking through other brands online. You go through, and Tom Ford is pretty much the only one in the list that's all capitalized. So he's not shying.
He could do what he wants. He does what he wants. I tell you what, that is one. Despite what you think of the name or not, that one is outstanding. That is a great fragrance. So if you're looking
I need to
get,
try that.
yeah, you get the Dickie bow on, Matt. You're going to the opera, getting dressed up. I would say "Fucking Fabulous" is the way to go because it really, you put that on, it's like, yeah, I do smell fucking fabulous. This is amazing. So I think if you're looking to get dressed up and you got the bow on and you're decked out, I would go with that.
Awesome. So Matt, when you're next at the opera and Jana leans in and says, "You look fabulous," you should just say, "Yeah, and I smell fucking fabulous as well, sweetheart."
Amen.
Thank you very much.
Amen.
Well, I'm going tonight, so I'll have to go pick up some on the way.
Oh wow, another one. This is
Highly
like a third
recommend.
in a week for you, right?
Second this week.
So, also, how cool would it be? Well, I've just had this thought. You know how you have these surround cinemas, like 4D cinemas, where you have like water splash up your face if you have rain on the screen. You could have the Tom Ford fragrance pump through from the back of the chair every time Bond comes on the screen. Wouldn't that be? That'd be really cool.
Yeah, the good old smell-o-vision.
Smell-o-vision. That's right. Yeah, love it.
Awesome. Well, listen, Bobby. What's next for you with the blog? So, where are you taking the blog at the moment?
Yeah, so we're taking the blog. We got some travel coming up. We're heading to Cancun next month, so we'll have some fun pictures from Mexico. Planning on going to Costa Rica after that, and then back to Mexico to Cabo San Lucas later on this summer. So we love traveling. Again, very Bond type stuff. When we're there, we try and immerse ourselves in these places. So we've got some fun things coming up. A recent trip, we were not that long ago in the Bahamas. And for any Bond fan, if you haven't been to the Ocean Club and you haven't kind of experienced that, highly recommended. And a lot of that, we stayed at Atlantis, and I have some pictures on the blog that the scenes where Sean is coming out of the water and kind of sneaking into Largo's lair and things like that, they haven't changed since the mid-'60s. At
what
all.
is it like now?
There.
So, is it abandoned? I heard it was abandoned.
It is. Well, Palmyra is kind of, you drive kind of past that on the way to Paradise Island, and it's a shame. You could totally tell, where the shark tank was and things like that. It's in a state of disrepair, and from what I understand, that estate is for sale now. So if we want to pool some funds between the Bond community, we'll do a timeshare sort of thing. I'm in. So we can do that, but that place just feels so James Bond. You can't help but feel like Bond there. And I tell you, the Ocean Club, when you go there and I don't know if either of you have been there, but you pull around that car circle and you walk through those doors, it is exactly like the movie. I mean, exactly. So you go and order a Mount Gaines soda at that bar and you walk around the grounds, and it's just awesome. So highly recommended. Any Bond fans, it's like Peace Gloria and the Ocean Club should be like neck and neck.
Like it. That does
Totally.
sound tempting. Listen, Bobby, huge thanks for coming on, mate. That was fascinating. If people want to check you out, it's Matched Perfectly on Instagram, and the blog is matchedperfectly.com.
It's matchedperfectly.us.
Oh, sorry, matchedperfectly.us.
No worries.
I'll edit that out in post.
Perfect.
Matt, have you got anything else?
No, I was I'm really impressed with everything you do, and it's really great to have you here.
Yeah.
Likewise. Hey, thank you guys. Really, thank you. It's fun talking to you guys. I enjoy the heck out of the podcast. Really, all the content you guys do is phenomenal. Matt, your blog is like,
thanks.
Really, I go there multiple times a week. So thank you for the effort. I know that's not an easy undertaking.
Thanks, Bobby.
Nice one.
Cool.
I just noticed the bulldog in the background there, Bobby, as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we got. Yeah, so.
That thing.
You didn't tell me.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
I also
don't
noticed
take the desk job, just the opposite.
Yeah. No, I also noticed the other Bond thing that you're wearing, the watch.
Oh yeah. So this was a gift from my wife as well. So it's I guess it's vintage now. It's a '99 Submariner. I tried to get the buzzsaw bezel option, but no such luck. So absolutely. And again, that ties into some of those things that are just kind of, it's more than just kind of a watch or more than just kind of, a shirt or whatever. You have that connection to that. I think that's what makes this community so cool, is everybody kind of feels that. And you can walk someplace, you have a meal or you order a drink, and you have you smell that sense, like, yeah, that is kind of Bond-esque. It's a fun way to get through the day.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I think we all have those moments where we feel like Bond. That's why we start the segment with.
I wanted to ask you guys. I want to ask what I want to hear it before I hear it on the podcast. What have been the Bondian things this week for you guys?
Well,
how's the casting going?
The casting. Well, the casting actually. As soon as we recorded the podcast, I had my profile deleted. So I'm not sure if the.
You think it went public?
Well, I can't. No one gives a. Bobby, no one gives a shit about me. I'm way too small fry for anyone to be looking at me or what I'm doing.
No, humanresearch.xyz is like on. That's like on Eon's hit list, from what I understand now.
Well, I'm flattered they're still talking about me. I highly don't think I do.
Yeah.
So I emailed the company and asked, is there any reason why this has been deleted? And they came back with very much, who are you? We've never heard of you. We don't know your profile existed in the first place. So
was it something
very mysterious?
I said?
Very mysterious, but it's not going to stop me. Sorry?
Blofeld's out there.
Yeah, I know, but
yeah.
I don't see the problem. I'm just a dude applying for a job on a film set. What could go wrong? I don't think I've done anything too Bond yet. Although I did get a signed autograph picture for my birthday of Roger, and
I saw that.
I posted it on Instagram.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So not technically this week, but as I'm groping for things to say right now, I think that's the nearest thing.
Still counts. Still counts.